Hello, my dear friends. Today, we will travel far back in time, almost 2,400 years ago, to ancient Greece, where one of the greatest minds in history was born. His name was Plato, a man whose thoughts shaped the way people think, learn, and live even today. When we hear the word philosophy, we often think of long books and deep questions. But at its heart, philosophy means love of wisdom, and Plato was truly a lover of wisdom. He spent his life searching for truth, asking questions about life, justice, love, beauty, and knowledge. He believed that wisdom was not something we are born with, but something we must find through thinking, questioning, and understanding. The story of Plato is not just about philosophy. It is about how a young man's curiosity, courage, and search for truth helped to build the foundation of modern knowledge. So, take a deep breath. Imagine yourself walking through the marble streets of ancient Athens, a place full of thinkers, teachers, and dreamers. Let's begin Plato's journey into wisdom. Plato was born in 427 BCE in Athens, the heart of ancient Greece, a city famous for its art, culture, and learning. Plato came from a noble and wealthy family. His father, Aristotle, and his mother, Perictione, were respected people in Athens. He could have lived a comfortable and powerful life. But Plato was not interested in politics or money. Even as a child, he wanted to understand why people live the way they do. Athens, during Plato's youth, was both beautiful and troubled. The city was full of art, temples, and ideas, but also wars, corruption, and injustice. The Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta brought pain and chaos. Plato watched his city fall from greatness to suffering. In his early years, Plato loved poetry, music, and sports. He was talented in writing plays and dreamed of becoming a poet or artist. But destiny had a different plan. One day, Plato met a man who would change his life forever. A man named Socrates. Socrates was unlike anyone Plato had ever met. He walked barefoot through the streets of Athens, speaking to anyone who would listen. He asked simple questions that made people think deeply. He would ask, "What is truth? What is justice? What makes a good life?" Socrates believed that true wisdom comes from recognizing that we know very little. He used questions, not to win arguments, but to open minds. This method later became known as the Socratic method. When Plato met him, he was amazed. Socrates had no wealth, no power, and no fear. He didn't lecture. He listened. He helped others discover truth through their own reasoning. Plato soon became one of Socrates' closest students. He followed him everywhere, to the market, the gardens, and public gatherings, listening to his conversations with citizens, politicians, and scholars. Through Socrates, Plato learned one of the most important lessons of his life. Wisdom begins with questions. But this peaceful time did not last. Many powerful men in Athens disliked Socrates. They thought his questions made young people disrespect authority. They accused him of corrupting the youth and disrespecting the gods. In 399 BCE, Socrates was put on trial. Plato watched in horror as his beloved teacher was sentenced to death, forced to drink poison made from the deadly plant hemlock. For Plato, this was a moment of deep pain, but also awakening. He realized that even the wisest person could be punished by an ignorant society. He understood how dangerous it was to speak the truth in a world ruled by pride and politics. Plato later wrote in one of his works, "The price good men pay for indifference to public affairs is to be ruled by evil men." After Socrates' death, Plato left Athens. He was heartbroken, but he carried his teacher's voice inside him. He promised himself that he would keep Socrates' ideas alive. And he did, through his writings, teachings, and his lifelong search for truth. After leaving Athens, Plato traveled for many years. He visited Egypt, Italy, and Sicily. He studied mathematics, science, religion, and politics. Everywhere he went, he collected knowledge, like a traveler gathering light. But no matter where he went, he carried one question with him. How can we create a just and wise society? He saw that every civilization had beauty and flaws. He met kings, priests, and scholars. Some sought power, others truth. But Plato realized that truth is not found in things. It is found in the mind. He began to develop his own philosophy, ideas about knowledge, justice, and the nature of reality. He believed that behind everything we see, there exists a perfect world of ideas, which he called the world of forms. To understand Plato's idea, imagine this. You are sitting in a room and sunlight shines through the window, casting shadows on the wall. You see the shadows and think they are real, but the real objects, the ones creating the shadows, are behind you. This, Plato said, is how most people live. They see only the shadows of truth, not the truth itself. He believed that everything in our world, beauty, love, courage, justice, is only a reflection of something perfect that exists in another realm, a higher world of pure ideas or forms. For example, there are many beautiful things in the world: flowers, faces, sunsets. But the idea of beauty itself is something eternal and unchanging. This idea became one of the most important in Western philosophy. It taught people to look beyond appearances, to search for deeper meaning. When Plato returned to Athens, he was ready to share his wisdom. Around 387 BCE, he founded a school, the first university in the Western world, called the Academy. It was built in a garden near Athens and became a place where young minds came to learn, discuss, and question. People from different cities traveled to study there. Plato's Academy taught subjects like mathematics, science, politics, and philosophy. But more importantly, it taught how to think. On the entrance of the Academy, it is said that there was a sign that read, "Let no one ignorant of geometry enter here." This didn't mean that only mathematicians were welcome. It meant that one must love order, logic, and reasoning to understand truth. One of Plato's most famous students was a young man named Aristotle, who later became a teacher of Alexander the Great and a great philosopher himself. Plato believed that education was not about filling the mind with facts, but about awakening the soul. He once said, "Education is not the filling of a vessel, but the lighting of a fire." Through the Academy, Plato lit the fire of wisdom for generations to come. Among all his writings, one of the most famous is The Republic. In this book, Plato asks one great question: what is justice? He imagined an ideal city, a city ruled not by wealth or power, but by wisdom. He called it Callipolis, the beautiful city. In this city, leaders would not be chosen by birth or money, but by their love of truth. He called them philosopher kings, rulers who govern with wisdom and fairness. Plato believed that only those who understand what is truly good should have the power to rule. He said, "Until philosophers become kings, or kings become philosophers, there will be no end to the troubles of states." His ideas were revolutionary, even impossible in his time. But they made people think about justice, morality, and leadership in new ways. He believed that society could only be peaceful when everyone does the work they are best suited for, when reason rules over greed and ignorance. Plato's Republic became one of the most studied books in human history. Its ideas still shape modern politics, education, and ethics today. Plato also wrote about love, not romantic love, but a higher kind of love, the love of truth, beauty, and goodness. In his dialogue, The Symposium, he described love as a ladder, beginning from physical attraction, then rising to love of the mind, and finally reaching the love of pure beauty itself. For him, love was the path to wisdom. He believed that every soul longs to return to the world of perfection it once knew. Through love, we move closer to that divine truth. He wrote, "At the touch of love, everyone becomes a poet." This view of love inspired centuries of poets, artists, and thinkers, from the Renaissance to modern times. Plato lived a long life, teaching, writing, and guiding others. He wrote around 36 dialogues, conversations between characters that explore questions of truth, justice, and virtue. Through them, his teacher Socrates continued to live, asking questions, challenging minds. Plato never stopped believing in the power of the mind. He believed that people could change the world, not through war or wealth, but through wisdom. He once said, "The measure of a man is what he does with power." He warned that ignorance leads to chaos, and that wisdom brings peace. When Plato died, around 347 BCE, he left behind not just a school, but a legacy of thought that became the foundation of Western philosophy. His student Aristotle carried forward his light, and through Aristotle, the torch of wisdom passed to the next generations. Even after 2,000 years, Plato's questions still guide us. What is truth? What is justice? How should we live? His answers remind us that wisdom is not a destination. It is a lifelong journey. My dear friends, Plato's story is more than a tale of ancient Greece. It is a mirror, showing us the value of thinking, learning, and questioning. In a world full of noise and opinions, Plato teaches us the importance of silence and thought. He reminds us that knowledge is not enough. We must also seek understanding. He teaches that love is not only a feeling, it is a bridge between the human and the divine. And above all, he shows that the greatest power in the world is not money or fame. It is wisdom. Plato once said, "The greatest wealth is to live content with little." So, as you go forward in your own journey, remember this. Be curious like Plato. Ask questions. Search for truth, not for victory, but for understanding. Because true wisdom is not knowing everything, it is knowing that there is always more to learn.